We'll be going over IRS Form 8959, Additional Medicare Tax. Taxpayers will use this form to figure the amount of additional Medicare tax they owe and the amount of additional Medicare tax withheld by your employer, if any was withheld. And you'll carry the result of your calculation on this form to your 1040, whether it's a 1040 SR, 1040, 1040 NR, 1040 SS, or 1040 PR. You will need to attach your Form 8959 to your tax return. So, for background information, a 0.9 additional Medicare percent additional Medicare tax will apply to your Medicare wages or your Railroad Retirement Act, Railroad Retirement Tax Act, RRTA compensation, and self-employment income above a certain threshold. And the threshold is for married taxpayers filing a joint return, $250,000. Married filing separate, $125,000, and single head of household or qualifying surviving spouse, $200,000. These amounts are not indexed for inflation. So you must file this form if one or more of the following situations applies to you. 1. Your Medicare wages and tips on any single Form W-2, Box 5, are greater than $200,000. 2. Your RRTA compensation on any single Form W-2, Box 14, is greater than $200,000. Your total Medicare wages and tips plus self-employment income are greater than the threshold amount for your filing status outlined on the IRS form instructions. Or 4, your total RRTA compensation and tips is greater than the threshold amount for your filing status. For background information, your Medicare wages include wages and tips from Box 5 of your Form W-2, any tips you may have reported on IRS Form 4137, line 6, and your wages from Form 8919, line 6. So, as you can see, this is a one-page form. It's broken down into 5 distinct parts. We will go through each part line by line, and starting with Part 1, Additional Medicare Tax on Medicare Wages. So in line 1, you'll enter your Medicare wages and tips from Box 5 of your Form W-2. And if you have more than one Form W-2, enter the total of the amounts reported on all Box 5s. For line 2, you'll enter unreported tips from IRS Form 4137, Social Security and Medicare tax on unreported tip income. If you're filing a joint tax return, you should also include the amount from line 6 of your spouse's Form 4137. For line 3, you'll enter any wages from IRS Form 8919, uncollected Social Security and Medicare tax on wages. And if you're filing a joint return, also include your spouse's amount from line 6 of his or her Form 8919. For line 4, you'll simply add lines 1, 2, and 3, and then in line 5, you'll enter the amount pertinent to your tax filing status. Again, joint married tax filers, $250, married filing separately, $125, all other taxpayers, $200,000. For line 6, you'll simply subtract line 5 from line 4. If this is 0 or less, then you'll enter 0. And then on line 7, you'll multiply the amount on line 6 by 0.9% or 0.009. you'll enter that number here and then go to Part 2. If you did not have self-employment income, then you can skip Part 2, additional Medicare tax on self-employment income. Otherwise, enter any self-employment income that you had as noted on Schedule SE of your Form 1040, Part 1, Line 6. If you had a loss, then you should refer to the form instructions, which state, for self-employment income less than $400, do not include any of the following amounts on line 8. 1. The amount on Schedule SE, Part 1, Line 6, if it is less than $400. However, if line 5B is $100 or more, include that amount on line 8. And the 2, the amount on either Form 1040 SS or 1040 PR Part 5, Line 6, if that is less than $400, and the amount on 5B is 0 or blank. If the amount on line 5B is $100 or more, you should include that amount. So if you have less than $400 of self-employment income, then you will not include it in most situations, unless otherwise directed in the form instructions. As previous, line 9, you'll enter the threshold for your tax filing status. In line 10, you'll carry down the amount from line 4. You'll subtract line 10 from line 9 to arrive at the number to put into line 11. If this number is 0 or less, enter 0. For line 12, subtract line 11 from line 8. If this results in a number of 0 or less, enter 0. And then any amount in line 12, multiply that by 0.9%. That is your additional Medicare tax on self-employment income. Enter that here, then go to Part 3. For Part 3, we will calculate any additional Medicare tax on RRTA compensation. If you and your spouse did not have RRTA compensation, you may skip this part and go to Part 4. So, similar manner to Parts 1 and 2, you will enter your RRTA compensation and tips from Form W-2, Box 14. Enter the total. So if you have more than one W-2, or if you have a spouse that also has a W-2 with RRTA compensation, enter the combined total. Then on line 15, you'll enter the amount for your filing status, depending on your filing status. Then you'll subtract line 15 from line 14. If this number is 0 or less, enter 0. Otherwise, go to line 17, multiply the result on line 16 by 0.9%. This is your additional Medicare tax on RRTA compensation. For Part 4, the total additional Medicare tax, you'll combine the additional Medicare tax for wage income on line 7, the additional Medicare tax on self-employment income on line 13, and then the additional Medicare tax on RRTA compensation on line 17. You'll combine those, and this is your total additional Medicare tax, which you'll also include on Schedule 2, line 11. Now we go to Part 5, where we discuss withholding reconciliation. In line 19, you'll enter the Medicare tax withheld from Form W-2, Box 6. And if you have more than one Form W-2, or your spouse has a Form W-2, then you include the total of all of those amounts in line 19. For line 20, you'll go back up to the amount that you had entered on line 1, which is your total Medicare tips and wages. You'll enter that here, and then you will multiply this amount by 1.45%. This is your regular Medicare tax withholding on Medicare wages. You'll subtract line 21 from line 19. If this is 0 or less, enter 0. And this number is your additional Medicare tax withholding on Medicare wages. On line 23, you'll enter the additional Medicare tax withholding on RRTA compensation, and this would be on your Forms W-2 box 14. My apologies for the cutoff. There's only one more line, that is line 24, which is the total additional Medicare tax withholding, which you'll arrive at by combining lines 22 and 23. This is your total withholding. You'll also need to include that amount with federal income tax withholding on Form 1040, line 25C. That's all we have for this video. You can read the article that we wrote on IRS Form 8959. Simply go to our website, teachmepersonalfinance.com, type in IRS Form 8959 in the search bar, and you should see our article. If you like our articles, please subscribe to our newsletter. If you like our YouTube videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And as always, if you have questions, comments, or concerns, you can either post them in the comments section or you can send me an email. Thank you very much and have a great day.